this is not the best lighting, and I wanted to finish this where I wanted to talk about going to honeymoon hideaway in the Poconos. I can't remember the name of the town, but all the excitement of the wedding and getting home late in the day since we got married in the evening, we did drive to Allentown before we went to the Poconos, and then went up there and got there Sunday early afternoon. I don't even remember what time check-in was, but it was lots of couples in a resort like campground type place where we all had our own cabin. We didn't have the heart-shaped beds, but they had entertainment and dinners and activities and horseback riding. And they had an on-site photographer, so if you look around, you should find a lot of photos of our honeymoon and an album called Honeymoon Hideaway from 1975. So then we had bought our house at 825 Roosevelt Avenue, which was our first home, right in Roosevelt Avenue, downtown York. And we bought that before we were married, and we found it as a assumable mortgage, which they don't do anymore, but the house had a mortgage on it, so all we did was pay the difference and start paying the mortgage the same as the people who owned the house. So actually, I think the mortgage payment was like $125, which is truly, truly amazing. So that was a really good deal for our first house. So we stayed there for several years. During that time, my mother died. I was 27 years old when she passed away, and I was working for the state of Pennsylvania at the time. I had finished up the summer jobs at the Navy Depot, and then I had a short stint at New Cumberland Army Depot, but then I left there to go work for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as an accountant. And I started as a fiscal clerk, I guess, is the beginning. And I finally made it up to accountant one. But then I quit that. It seems that I changed jobs as much as I changed houses in our lifetime, in our marriage. The big trip that we took was when we went to see Robert's sister, Aunt Cindy. She was living in Casper, Wyoming at the time, so we borrowed my dad's pickup truck with the camper that he had built on it and traveled out. And I'm not even sure how long we were gone. Went out there, and I remember going through the plains and the cornfields of Iowa and Illinois and the flatlands. We finally got to the Black Hills, and there was a big rain and black clouds, and it was a big storm as we were approaching the Black Hills. And then as we got to the hills that we had seen in the distance, we started climbing up to the area towards where Mount Rushmore was. And the sun came out in this beautiful rainbow. It was just a beautiful thing. Because the whole way going west, I kept thinking about the pioneers and the westward expansion and the covered wagons and the Conestoga wagons going west, and how they had to find places to cross these rivers, and the trail people. And it was just really amazing to me to make this trek across the country. And then we finally pulled into the parking lot of the Mount Rushmore National Park, and there's flags all over the place, and they're playing America the Beautiful. And I just burst into tears, which sometimes it makes me cry when I think about it even now. How impressed I was with our country, and how it was so patriotic and so much history that we drove through. And I'm standing there crying, and this is my new husband of only a year and a half or 2 years wondering what in the world was wrong with me, but it was because I was an emotional person and just loving our trip and loving what we were doing. So we stayed with Cindy and John at their house in Casper, Wyoming, and she was working, I think, for part of the oil companies too. I remember that she was surveying the land and keeping track of what the land was like before the oil companies came in on that. So somebody's going to have to ask her to tell a story about that job that she had. And then we did go horseback riding, and that was really cool because it was more like a real ranch. It wasn't a trail ride like you do around in the east. And we were out in the fields, and somehow I remember something about being careful of the horses and the prairie dog holes, that you didn't want them to step in a prairie dog hole. What that story was and how it all panned out, I don't really remember that. And then we left Casper and headed south down into Colorado, went into Denver. There's some pictures that Robert took then of going into Denver. And I think one of them may have won a ribbon even with the sunlight. And then we went to Rocky Mountain National Park, which was amazing. And the one thing that really happened that was crazy is I was on the passenger side of the truck, and somehow I'm not sure if I had the keys or if I was getting out, but I tossed them over to Robert, and they went down in the front of the windshield where the windshield wipers lay when the windshield wipers aren't going, and I was so afraid the keys would be lost, but somehow we got them out, and that was good. We came home. So when we came home, we were at traffic in St. Louis. And actually, before St. Louis, we were in Kansas. We stayed in the camper every night. We ate most of our meals in the camper and did a little bit of cooking or snacking. But when Kansas was so stinking hot, and this is back in 1976, 1977, there was no air conditioning in the truck, and it was hot as anything. And I said, oh my gosh, we need to find something to do. So I had that AAA tour books with me, and I found this park that was a new park they were putting in. So we pulled in there, and nobody's really around, but they had some roads, and you could see the Caterpillar tractor treads where this lake was going to be, where they had dug out this lake or got this water or whatever they were doing to make a pond or a swimming area for this park. So it was really raw, except there was bathhouses there with restrooms and showers in. And so I said to Robert, I don't care, it's too hot, I'm going to get in this water. So I stepped off the edge where the Caterpillar tractor mud was, and I went down up to my knee in mud.